It's done. Okay, so first thing I want to mention is I think we need an extra week on the topic. So I had thought that we would go into module 14 next week, but we will do another week on Tantra and see how we go at the end of that week. And then the final 2 weeks, we will go over the special integration practices for this discovering Buddhism. In other words, those of you who come along just now, you've jumped into the deep end of the pool. So I hope you know how to swim. So last time we ended up looking at the very end, we were looking at how to view our body as pure, our speech as pure, our mind as pure, and then transforming our body through the dissolutions in relation to the death process, talking about taking death in the intermediate state and rebirth into the path. So that's where we're up to, which is those of you who are following the notes, it's in week 3. Okay, that's where we're up to. And as always, we've been having a lot of exchange, question and discussion and so forth. So please, anytime, just say, hang on a minute. Any questions that arise. Okay. All right, so now moving on from last time, we have this quote from Lama Yeshe. In the early stages of practice, so as we left off last time, taking death, intermediate state, and rebirth into the path. Okay. So into the path of Tantra, so transforming those into the pure bodies of a Buddha, those stages into the pure bodies of the Buddha. Of a Buddha, when we take a tantric empowerment, it will be of a specific deity. So in the early stages of practice, this process of seeing oneself as a deity is largely artificial. In other words, we haven't yet cultivated, and we talked last time about having divine pride, not arrogant pride and, hanging up a shingle, hi, I'm Buddha Tara, come visit me if you want some swift action. I know nobody would do that, but I'm just saying we in the first stages, it is artificial because we're using our conceptual mind to visualize, and then any moments of really feeling that oneness between ourselves, the guru, the deity, we hold our mind there to stabilize that, and then when that fades, we continue on with the practice. Anyway, but as we continue to train in deity yoga, so the practice with the deity, with proper perseverance, so we have this proper perseverance in relation to a particular deity, might be, sort of reading commentaries about the qualities of that particular deity once you have the empowerment. Or there are ones that you can read about already there are commentaries you can read already without having the empowerment, such as in relation to Chenrezig, Tara, Vajrasattva, and just to mention, of course, we'll be having a Vajrasattva retreat over Easter. For those, it is part of module 14 of Discovering Buddhism to complete the 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras, which you cannot accomplish over a couple of days of Easter retreat. It takes 3 months retreat, or a very long time as a daily practice. Depending on how much you do. But anyway, So whatever, you can read those commentaries, read about their qualities, and try and get closer, so that that inspires you to keep on with the practice. So with proper perseverance, we'll be able to perceive this self-generated deity. And again, we cannot self-generate as a deity unless we've taken the relevant empowerment. However, when we have, with a clarity far exceeding that of our present self-image. So our present self-image is based on this solid body. So just as an analogy, you can imagine that, you've got a table set up outside the house, and on that you have a stick of incense and a lamp. And they're like traditionally, as we say, a butter lamp, a candle. But then we can say, unless that candle's in a container, it's going to go out. So one of these ones is fine, the rechargeable battery ones. But you set it up, and it's in the sunshine, and you can't really perceive clearly the light from either. You can maybe smell the incense and know that it's lit. I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I have burnt myself checking if it's lit, because you can't see the red bit and so forth. And so it's the light of the sun is so much stronger, and so you can't distinguish that, whether it's glowing, whether the candle's alight, and so forth. But as the sun goes down in the sky, the light becomes more and more obvious, doesn't it? We see that, and then the darker it gets, we see that the incense has been there glowing the whole time. So like that, with our practice, is that with the mind, once we settle down the gross conceptual thoughts, the ordinary mind in which we engage with daily, once that, the gross functions of our physical sensations and of the mind, and that starts to shut down, we use a variety of techniques in Tantra then to, we have methods to be able to be, progressively shut those down, and then until we finally access more and more subtle levels of our mind as we progress along. The subtle mind and the very subtle mind. So as when we looked at taking death, intermediate state, and rebirth into the path, and we talked about the intermediate state, the bardo between lives, being like when we dream at night, it's a more subtle level of mind. And then the most subtle level of mind is the clear light, the clear light mind. And if we can hold our mind in that clear light, which is what those who have actual control over death, intermediate state, and rebirth, they've got control of that and abide in that at death time. In the meantime, we're getting more and more practice. Okay, we practice. So our mind will actually eventually become the mind of the deity, the pure mind of the deity, and thinking that a mind of a deity, of a Buddha. And there again, we need to read about the qualities of a Buddha's body, speech, and mind. And when we look at the mind, a Buddha knows everything there is to know. And so whatever we've transformed our ordinary experiences, as we said, we take our, visualize our pure body, pure speech, pure mind. So we transform that into the blissful enjoyments of the deity. So Lama Yeshe says it's not a fairy tale, and that transformation has been the experience of many, many tantric practitioners of the past, of the present, and so forth. And that's how they've been able to talk about it, give transmissions, and so forth. So if we make sufficient effort with proper perseverance, we should experience those same transcendental results. For myself, I have this endearing image of Geshe Doga. Geshe Doga's has been at Tara Institute for some decades now in Melbourne. And my enduring image is of Geshe Doga, or sitting there, seems to be constantly with a grin from here to here, doing mantras and just sort of smiling away blissfully. That sort of blissful experience. Have no idea of Geshe-la's realizations. How do we know that? But it certainly gives you an inspiration when you see that. And then also, as His Holiness Dalai Lama told one Lama who was asked to go to a conference in New York, as His Holiness said, if they ask you about your meditative experiences, you have to tell them, because normally they don't tell us, right? And so this Lama was there and they asked him about his meditative experiences, what his experience was. And he had his head right down, like humbly, as far down as he could. And he said, I abide in immutable great bliss. Immutable great bliss. That's his ground state. We can check up what our ground state is, but that's his ground state. And so, again, not talking about his actual practices, but the Dalai Lama said you have to say, so he had to say it. And you think, okay, this is possible if I put in the sufficient effort, okay? But in the meantime, most of us will be conceptualizing it, will be artificial, but just think that it's putting imprints into the mind, more and more imprints, the more, just think the number of, all the imprints we get by just looking at Buddha images, and there are so many of them, just that. So never underestimate that. So this eventually being able to, those of us who can, have the appropriate empowerment, done the retreat and so forth, can, the self-emanation, and nonetheless, even if you haven't, it's a means of habituating ourselves to recognition of our own pure qualities, because we're very, very good at recognizing our negative qualities and, and abiding in that. And where has that got us, So recognizing our pure nature, which is our true nature, and think, well, who am I really? If we investigate, we're changing all the time. Can you get me, Venerable, the gold treble? Just one copy. Yeah. I wanted to sort of say right at the moment, even you haven't had a tantric empowerment, there's so much we can do in relation to that, meditating on the on Shakyamuni Buddha and the qualities of the Buddha. And there, because it's the Shakyamuni Buddha's the teacher of the sutra path, and Vajradhara is the teacher of the tantric path. So we have meditations like a daily practice in this book, or there's copies out there, of sort of delightful little practice of Shakyamuni Buddha. And there you can, at the end you visualize Shakyamuni Buddha dissolving into you, and then connecting with your own Buddha nature, and that arising in the form of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. So there's already a lot of the elements that you can do there, because it's a sutra and not a tantric practice. Of course, Vajrasattva practice, Tara practice, Medicine Buddha practice. There's so many we can do already. Oh, excuse me. And I just wanted to mention another thing in this we have these morning practices, morning activities, and that's like mantras for blessing the mala, blessing our feet, and so forth. And then there's the blessing of the speech. And in the blessing of the speech, after the refuge prayer, there's I arise as the deity. And you think, oh, I haven't had a tantric empowerment. I can't do that. But you can go through when it says I arise as a deity. So first of all, we dissolve everything into emptiness. So we go through those, familiarize, and you can do that. We looked at those who were here, looked at it in the death and rebirth module, the dissolutions of the time of death. And then instead of going into the bardo, visualize yourself arising as the most perfect, pure form of yourself, totally transformed. So you can do that without it being a particular deity. And here again, you're setting a very strong familiarity and foundation for tantric practice. So there's so many practices that you can do without an empowerment already that can bring you the familiarity, so that when you do take an empowerment, okay, when you actually take the empowerment, you may not have an idea of anything that's going on during the empowerment, but then it's subsequently a permission to practice. And then you can think, okay, well, I already did that with Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. It's similar here, and I already did the dissolutions of the time of death. So we have so many tools already, just saying. And then going on with Lama Yeshe, so this is making the space through not seeing. Although it's a good thing to study the various Buddhist texts and commentaries and learn to analyze them with a sharp and critical intelligence, and we do say to do that, we should understand that there are times when this analytical approach is actually harmful. This is Lama Yeshe talking. One of my meditation masters once told me, at a certain point, you have to abandon the philosophical way of understanding things. In other words, the intellectual way, the conceptual way. You must go beyond debate, beyond argument. That shocked me. I was a young, enthusiastic student at the time, and I liked to analyze and criticize everything. And in terms of the teachings. But I eventually understood what he meant. Remaining caught up in intellectual preconceptions can prevent us from entering, you could say experiencing, profound meditative experiences, because you've got to think those profound meditative experiences, even we have right now, are when we're getting into that zone of it being non-conceptual, right? It might be a fleeting moment, but we want to not grasp at, but just allow that moment to deepen. So it's important to know when to relax, to let go, to allow the mind to settle. And this is what we need to do more and more as an emphasis in any meditation that we're doing. Relax, let go, allow the mind to settle into its natural state of clarity. So the mind in its natural state is what? Clear and knowing. And we use those analogies like as vast as this blue sky on a sunny day, unobstructed, nothing clouding it. It's just very clear, like today, brilliant blue sky, and you look up at the sky and it's very, very clear and bright. So it's an analogy for how our mind is in its natural state. It's not the sky. It's an analogy because we haven't, there will be no words that ever can say what that experience is. But given that people are nodding, maybe you have had some experience with that. So letting the mind and heart, chitta, abide in their natural state. And this is where it could be harmful by just engaging in conceptual thought, in intellectualizing. When you use your intellect, it is natural for all sorts of superstitious concepts to arise. So we could say superstitious concepts are like wrong views, or we say they're intellectually acquired afflictions. So we have afflictions that we have an abundance that come with us: anger, desire, jealousy, pride, and so forth. And the intellectually acquired are holding on to particular philosophical views, even we don't have a correct understanding of those views. And so we make mistakes. Your mind becomes overly busy and vibrates, Lama Yeshe's use of words, vibrates with the fragmented energy of such concepts. So we've got to maybe, as those of you who have studied a bit, and you say, I'm discombobulated, or my mind's, sort of like, there's all these bits and pieces. Where do they all hang together? And we just sort of don't get a sense of the whole. We don't get a sense of where it all. So the energy is sort of going haywire. And that's a dangerous thing in Tantra. Then, since every state of mind is associated with its own wind or air energy, your subtle nervous system will also become very busy, vibrating with various conflicting wind energies. So this subtle body is not a physical body. You will not find it in there anywhere. It's like Lama Yeshe sometimes refers it as a psychic body, or probably better, it's more akin to a body of light. And we talk about, and this becomes very relevant in Tantra, the channels and chakras and drops in this subtle body. So it said that this subtle body, there are 72,000 channels throughout the body. Already, for example, when we do Vajrasattva practice, those of you who are familiar with the Vajrasattva practice, there's a visualization of, sort of that enables us to more stabilize. Even you haven't done that, the 9-round breathing, if you've done 9-round breathing, what you're doing is you're visualizing 3 channels. So this is the main channel, the central channel from the crown of the head down to 4 finger widths or so below the navel. And then the 2 side channels are coming up from our nostrils and going around either side. And they're like tubes of light. They're not solid. They're very flexible. And we use those and visualize energies passing through those to do purification practices. So some of you may be familiar with that. But then, it gets more complicated with all those energy channels throughout the body. And so when our minds are all confused and so forth, it is affecting those energy channels in our body. If you've been to a Tibetan doctor, anyone been to a Tibetan doctor? And they just go tap, 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 and then they tell you everything that's wrong with you. You're just like, really? They're reading your pulses, and the pulses, and then the subtle energies in the body. And they say, have you got pain there? Have you got pain? Yes. So also in Tibetan Buddhism, so it says that becomes busy with various conflicting wind energies. This can easily lead to a painful condition the Tibetans call lum. So it means a disturbance of the wind energies, of the air in our body. And here, as Lama Yeshe said, it means frustrated energy at the heart chakra. So in other words, these channels here are blocked. So part of Tantra is a vast purification practice that involves unblocking the channels of the subtle body. At the moment, this is all theoretical. As Lama Yeshe said, it's all artificial at the beginning, but we just hope that's happening. No, we don't hope. We believe that's happening. So this lung is a very dangerous thing. If you've seen anyone that, when I think about, I can think of someone, a student in particular, who got lung. And often it's from trying too hard. and having our, you know, contracting our energies and keeping too tight. This is why the relaxation and spaciousness is so, so important, unbelievably important. So anyway, this person was a, you know, sort of diligent student, coming along all the time for a few years, and then got lung. And at that point, like we could see, like her mind was going a bit very unstable. Someone that you knew was suddenly very unstable. And so we started encouraging her to go and talk to the Geshe, which she never did. And her mother came to the center as well. And her mother hung around, and it got to the point where she didn't even know where her daughter was anymore. She'd gone off grid. It's very distressing, right? So this mind, it can manifest in very dangerous ways. So if we ever feel there's something scary going on, back off. Don't think, oh, I've got to push through this. Do not push through anything, right? Do not push through anything. So, as Lama Yeshe said, as with all aspects of the spiritual path, there's a time to use the intellect and a time to put it aside. And then also, our mind is easily stirred up by a proliferation or elaboration of thoughts. So this is where also our mind can go in the wrong direction. This is what Lama Zopa called hallucinating on top of what is there, what isn't there. So the idea of hallucination we get, isn't it? There's nothing real in there anyway. It's all fictional. So on the other hand, we can be obsessed with memories, fantasy, worrying, planning, and so forth. So these are what Lama Yeshe refers to as superstitious concepts. But also in, you know, meditation practices, and people come along and say, oh, I saw a purple light. What does that mean? It means you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing and focusing on your breath. That's what it means. One time at Copan, and one of the students came and said, so-and-so, another student, is freaked out because he dreamt of his death. And I said, well, is he still breathing? Like, you know, you're alive. You had a dream about death. Who's had a dream about death? A few of us have, and we're still alive. It was a dream. So your dreams as dreams. They are dreams. Sometimes we believe our dreams. So to stop this getting caught up in this mental proliferation that affects our mind, our emotions, our mood, and the state of our body, particularly when we come to Tantra, the subtle body. That's me buzzing. Some of you, some people came along on Friday for the new year, and we took precepts, the 8 Mahayana precepts. When they take the 8 Mahayana precepts, one of the things is refraining from eating meat, eggs, radish, onion family, garlic family. So why do we refrain from those? Because they affect the subtle energies in a not helpful way. They obstruct the subtle energies. That's the purpose. So the ultimate way of abandoning such proliferations is through developing the wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is the ultimate purification, the wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is the ultimate reality of ourself and others, realizing that experientially. And just as I mentioned with the blessing of the speech, we go through that process to come to that point of a direct experience of emptiness. That's what we say we dissolve everything into emptiness. And then because of emptiness, everything is possible. Because of emptiness, I can arise as a deity. Everything's empty of inherent existence. Everything, in other words, is changing. So I can direct that change where I want to direct it in terms of my engagement with the world around me, with other people, with myself. So body, speech, and mind. And of course, we say, yeah, well, one day that will happen. But again, we've got the meditations on emptiness. Those of you who have tantric practices, there are places where we do that dissolution. And so every time, we're doing that, we're enhancing those imprints. And maybe from time to time, we have some experience. For example, with the dissolutions of the body, the first one, it says there's an inner vision of a mirage. It's like a mirage. So instead of thinking it's a vision to the mind, think I am a mirage. That transforms immediately, that experience, isn't it? And then I'm smoke within smoke. It's a sort of like there's nothing solid here anyway. So we can go through each of those stages. I am this, I am that. It's very, very powerful. Okay. More accessible ways to begin to create that spaciousness. So here it says, we penetrate the opaqueness, the obscuration, the cloudiness, blurriness of our thought-created reality. So sometimes it can feel like a solid block of thoughts. We get exhausted by thinking, yes? We do. I mean, I've heard so many people come and do a retreat and they end up exhausted. We should end up elated, but we end up exhausted because we didn't mean to, but we were trying very hard and not being spacious and open all the time. It's not a prison, just observe what happens. Any study that we're doing, we go, oh, I'm exhausted. If it's the body that's exhausted, it's not the mind, actually, though it does feel, and then we've got to, like, I really need time out. So this, blurriness, and then we don't see things clearly. It's like we say, oh, it's all a blur, like it was really clear then, but now it's all of a blur. And again, if we look at with shamatha meditation, where the more, so focusing on, well, let's say a common object of meditation there for developing that stabilizing mind of focus concentration is on the breath. But alternately, on a Buddha image, makes it much more powerful. And also, if you setting the foundations for Tantra, or you have a tantric empowerment, it can be on the deity, right, to stabilize our mind on that. Then as you progress through the stages of, the 9 stages of achieving shamatha, of course, really in a daily practice, you're not going to go past about stage 3, but hey, we take what we can get. But what happens as you progress through those stages, you gain more and more clarity. You gain more and more clairvoyance. We've all got clairvoyance, but it's clouded over. Clear seeing. So we gain more clarity, laser-like clarity as you progress through those stages of shamatha. So then if you're focusing on a Buddha image, everything becomes more and more clear, more and more detailed, and so on. Okay. So penetrating the opaqueness of our thought-created reality. So we distinguish, we learn to distinguish when our thinking is helpful and in touch with reality. Do we know that already? When our thinking is helpful in touch with reality? I think we know a few things. We might not be aware of it all the time, but we know what direction we want to be going in, yes? You must, you're here. No, it's logical, isn't it? So then versus when it's out of control, reactive, and leads to more harmful behavior. So here our mind becomes less rigid, less fixated, lacking that sort of feeling of concrete or substance or solidity. Now, on the basis of Tantra, we're doing that both with the body and mind and with the environment. We're transforming everything in there. So then let in the light of awareness, so our ideas and concepts become more transparent. We could also say more fluid, more just our ideas more spacious. Lama Yeshe would say, think big. Think big. Make your mind an ocean. Be very spacious. Be very open, because we limit ourselves with a narrow view of ourselves. Oh, I can't possibly achieve that. It's true, isn't it? We have limited, narrow views of ourselves, of our capabilities. Let the light of awareness in, so our ideas and concepts become more transparent, and we are less likely to mistake them for reality. So the more that we meditate on emptiness, the more that we cultivate a spacious mind, the more we allow our mind to be fluid and adapt and go with the flow. Go with the flow. Okay, so we can stop here to do not stop, stop my blah blah, so we can do a quick meditation of allowing the mind to settle in its natural state. So you just sit in a conducive posture for you. So first of all, feeling well grounded to the earth below you, through the soles of your feet, through your legs, through your buttocks, depending on how you're sitting. And the earth below, grounding you, literally coming up to support you through the floor, through the mat, through the cushion, so that your body is not holding itself up. It's allowing itself to be well supported with a chair, cushion, mat. And you can really settle down, settle in. And what does that do? Automatically, it brings our center of gravity down. We spend, with all this conceptualizing, so much time of our energy being up at the top of our head. So here, when we're supported, we can allow the body to let go of all that and settle down, settle in, bringing your awareness into the space of the body. Simply being aware of the natural flow of the breath in and out. You don't need to change a thing. The body knows how to breathe itself. It's been doing a great job so far. So it's not about the breath. It's about giving our mind one thing to settle on. The natural coming and going of the breath in the whole of your body, just as it is. Without elaboration. As soon as we turn our mind towards something, it's like we want to control it or conceptualize it. See if you can dwell in each moment of the breath rather than observe from a distance. Be within each moment of the breath in. And turn around to the breath out, all the way to the end of the breath out. And luxuriating in that letting go, that relaxation, that sense of creating more spaciousness and ease. Continuing to focus on the natural rhythm of your breath, and as you breathe out, letting go any tension, tightness you're experiencing anywhere in the body, usually around our face, around the eyes, around the jaw, just in your own time, check out shoulders, anywhere in the body that feels tight or tense or holding on. Just think that as you breathe in, you breathe into that area and create spaciousness around that. And as you breathe out softly, gently, let that tension, tightness melt away with each moment of the breath out, really savoring every moment of letting go, release, relax. Continuing to abide, to dwell in each moment of the breath out. Turn around to the breath in, each moment of the breath in. Turn around to the breath out and notice if there's a moment of stillness there, abiding there. In that stillness can be an exquisite moment of complete clarity and stillness. And then the next breath will arise naturally. So that your body is more and more in a state of balance and ease. And allow your mind then to settle down, settle in into its natural state. Its natural state of clarity, luminosity, spaciousness. So as thoughts arise or memories arise or any mental activity arises, just think that your mind in its natural state is clear, unobstructed space like the brilliant blue sky on a sunny day, completely luminous clarity. And not getting caught up with the thoughts, with the memories, with the plans, with the mental activities. They arise, they abide, they dissolve like clouds in this vast sky. So not grasping at them, not trying to push them away. Just let them be. Just relax your mind around. No grasping, no distraction. Just release any energy around that so that you abide in that natural space, the mind. completely clear, luminous space. Even having no preference between having a still mind or a mind moving, because it is the job of the mind to think and remember and do all sorts of things. We're not trying to stop it doing it. So we're not trying to still the mind, but be aware that whatever arises, all mind states are of the same nature, like the luminous blue sky, vast, clear and knowing, infinite space. Anytime you experience a non-conceptual mode of mind, simply notice, abide there. When it passes, abide there. So in our ordinary appearances, our ordinary day-to-day life, we've got all these perceptions, conceptions, thoughts, memories, plans, attracted to pleasant objects. Oh, that's a nice sound. Oh, that's a nice smell. What's cooking, etc., etc. And we're pushing away any unpleasant experiences, any discomfort. It's happening at the level of our body. It's happening at the level of our mind all the time. Push, pull, push, pull. And with this narrow idea of who we are, as Lama Yeshe said, we spend our time running towards this and away from that. Fed up with the endless rat race of our compulsive cyclic existence. Yes, thank you very much. We can train in penetrative awareness, just like that, and cultivate a direct perception of the actual way things exist. So this idea of cultivation, that meditation being a cultivation, is like cultivating a field of awareness, watching it come to maturation, watching it ripen and reaping the harvest of that maturation, this field of our mind. Eventually, as we become more and more deeply absorbed in the experience of spaciousness, so just like we did there so briefly, we can bring our mind into that sense, that spaciousness anytime, anywhere. Right? We can bring our mind more and more towards that without thinking, oh, I have to go to the center and do them. I mean, come along for meditation sessions, but anytime we can, sort of just let go. What we're letting go is the grasping, the pulling and pushing. That's what we're letting go of. More and more absorbed in the experience of spaciousness, the ordinary concrete appearances normally clouding our vision begin to dissolve. So this is where we do need to take the time in meditation, because it's very, very difficult to do that while we're engaging in everyday activity, to get that set, because we've got our mind on whatever we're doing. Okay. But when we meditate and more, all the clutter of our mind, crowding our vision, our clarity, begins to dissolve. And in this space, empty of all concrete discrimination of this and that. So when we talk about concrete discrimination of this and that, we're talking about getting to a sense of non-duality, of sometimes we use this thing of being in the zone. So if you've ever had that experience of being in the zone, there's no this and that, no me and you. It's just like you're in that experience. And it can be quite blissful. Fortunately, it doesn't last. Yet. But we can. I abide in immutable great bliss, as the Lama said. Yeah. And so in this space, empty of all concrete discrimination of this and that, our mind feels calm and boundless, yes? We have that sense of, if not moments of that, the possibility of that, yes? A glimpse. Glimpses are good. I always think eventually you'll join the dots, the glimpses, eventually they'll all come together. But right now, they're glimpses, free of limitation of ourselves. We had with no constraint on what's possible for ourselves. So we're no longer occupied with seeing and believing in the ultimate reality of ordinary appearances. We enter into the perfect seeing of this non-duality, this non-dual experience, this being in the zone. So apart from in meditation, what other times might you experience that being in the zone? For example, what's it called? Forest bathing. Anyone done forest bathing? Like, in other words, walking in the forest? The Japanese call it forest bathing. If you have that experience of it being a bath, you're being bathed in that, you're more likely to be in that experience. So it doesn't have to be sitting in meditation posture or in meditation. So in nature, often, why do people go for bushwalks? Why do they go out into nature? They go into nature. Why do they do that? Because there's that sense of being connected, isn't it? The whole earthing movement, being grounded to the earth below, for example. Other times, it could be swimming, and being in the experience. I don't know. There are other times you can think of. Swimming in the ocean, yeah. In the ocean, being in the tube is an amazing experience, right? It's just like space. You're in the water, but you're not in the water. So your homework for this week is to find those moments where you're in the zone. Just notice them. You'll find we've got quite a lot of those moments. It's important to realize that, because that's what we're taking into our practice. Yeah. Okay. So I've now got to the end of week 3, which means questions, comments, observations so far, including those online. Yes.
So this one. So say someone like me, I'm practicing Sutriyana path, and
yes,
I'm very much enjoying that.
Yes.
But I also am very interested in
yes.
and hear that you can take the different empowerments.
Yes.
To me, they seem a little bit of an abstract future that I might need to travel towards. Or
yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'm kind of asking about the right moment. Like, oh, okay, I will do this now.
Yeah. So at the moment, it's not feeling like the right moment. So what you do is you do what you can. Like I said, we've got so many practices that already on the sutra path, you'd say, already are incorporating, because in Mahayana Buddhism, and particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, are incorporating those elements, right? So, for example, doing daily meditation on the death dissolutions, either as part of an already practice or before you go to bed, of actually preparing yourself for sleep, and then you're sleeping in the clear light. And see how you go with that. And it'll come to you if and when you're ready. I shouldn't say if, because you will be, but yeah. So sometimes, it's very relevant that sometimes, like, people say, well, I'm going to do that 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, but I need Vajrasattva empowerment beforehand. So that becomes a need, right? Or Chenrezig in terms of doing Nyungnes, and so forth. So, yeah, it can be sometimes it is like that. Many people, it's been precipitated by need. Even one time, somebody, when I was at Vajrayana Institute, and somebody was going to do the Chen, I think Nyungnes or Chenrezig practice at Tashita, and you had to have an empowerment. And this is the thing, as I've mentioned previously, in Australia, it's very rare as the opportunity for any tantric empowerments. And so I was talking to this person and saying, well, there's no lamas I'm aware of in Australia who are giving Chenrezig empowerment. So have a look what's happening overseas. As it turned out, it was being offered at Tashita before the actual retreat he was doing. So the conditions can arise like that. So in general, the prerequisites is a sort of solid understanding of the 3 principles of the path. So then you look at those, and we've been talking about emptiness, but also renunciation and bodhicitta. So all those things get incorporated then. It's also, your question is quite profound, actually, because at the time of the Buddha, tantric empowerments, Buddha only gave tantric empowerments to those who, through his clairvoyance, he knew their minds were ready for that. So it was a very small group of people, a handful of people. So that these days, even we take a tantric empowerment, but we don't feel ready. You just think, okay, well, this is imprints, and get more teachings on tantric paths and grounds, which again, here current teachings on tantric paths and grounds to familiarise with. Well, what's that practice about anyway? Why are we doing this and this and this? Yeah. And then you realise, if you get those teachings, you realise, oh, I've got a hell of a long way to go, because there's so much, it's so detailed. And it's like, whoa. And you go, okay, we can say, like I've just expressed, putting limitations there, but going, well, I don't quite get any of that yet. Like at Vajrayana Institute, the sort of elders of the centre, we talked about, for example, they took Vajrayogini empowerment very early on. And they said, for 20 years, we had no idea what we were doing, right? And then slowly start to get to know what you're doing. So we also need to relax once we do take an empowerment and just think, I'm a work in progress. we are all work in progress, all of us right now. So, anything else?
There is an opportunity like this empowerment.
Yes, they're all highest yoga tantra empowerments.
But how would a person they talk to which one they should take for times?
Initially, they can talk with me, and then I can refer you up. Chain. I'll refer you up. But initially, people can talk with me. Okay. So I'm now on what is said to be week 4. Depending how far we get today. This is where we actually introduce the different levels of Tantra as well. So keeping in mind we'll be doing more on this next week. So the heading here says the bliss of inner fire. Now that's the title of a book by Lama Yeshe, Bliss of Inner Fire, which is actually about tumo, generating inner heat. It doesn't mean all tantric practice involves doing that. And of course, you may have heard stories about, like in Tibet, and the monks having competitions of generating in the snow, sitting in the snow and doing this tumo practice of inner fire and being wrapped in wet sheets and having competitions how many sheets you could dry. I don't know if it actually happened or if it's just one of those Tibetan myths. Could well be. So regardless of, now we can just forget about the inner heat part, but Tantra is associated very often with using desire as part of the spiritual path. So in the sutric path, we're abandoning desire in an ordinary sense, right? But here, everything's being transformed, right? So we've got to think about it in that aspect. Making use of pleasant experiences. So why do we make use of pleasant experience? Because you want to generate this state of bliss. It says when you realize emptiness, it is that blissful state. But in the meantime, we're using whatever tools we have to our availability to generate this bliss. And yeah, anyway, I'm jumping ahead. So as Lama Yeshe says, the central point of the tantric approach is taking desire into the path. The same desirous energy that ordinarily propels us from one unsatisfactory situation to another, due to our attachment, clinging, grasping, attachment to having a body, etc. Everything. Nice sounds, nice smells, nice everything. So all our craving and grasping that we know just propels our samsaric existence. So it's not about that. But that energy of desire is transmuted or transformed through the alchemy of Tantra. So we know alchemy was a sort of predecessor of modern chemistry, where you're transforming substances, probably most famously transforming metal into gold, or the creation of some sort of universal elixir. So if we're transforming, like we said about, transforming everything of our environment, transforming that desire. So say I'm thirsty and I want a drink of water, but I'm transforming that into blissful nectar. When we do the food offering prayer before we eat or before we drink. So with the food, we're visualizing transforming that. So we want to eat the meal, and we will indeed eat the meal. but this is to enhance the bliss of it. We do this visualization to purify it, make it completely pure, to increase, so that we visualize the meal, everything multiplied on every atom of space in a beautiful, vast, jeweled vessel, golden vessel, if you like, transforming it into blissful nectar. So all of this is a way of taking that desire, we're going to eat anyway, into the path. So we transform it into blissful nectar. Then, of course, we offer up to all the beings of all 6 realms to receive as delicious nectar. We offer to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, just like we make all these offerings here, and we're transforming those when we make the offerings. Multiplying on every atom of space, blissful nectar. And then offer to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then as we eat, we're offering also to our own inner Buddha. And then we visualize golden light going throughout our whole body, and light and nectar of bliss, so that every mouthful is more and more blissful. So that's an example of transforming ordinary eating into the path of bliss, right? So this we do already, or at least sometimes we do it already. When we do a retreat or something, we'll do like that. Whenever we do that. So this is the, transforming everything into transcendental experience of bliss and wisdom is the tantric path. That's what it is. We're doing all of that. So in terms of in the sutric path, sutric path, in terms of having this union, the union is of compassion and wisdom. We place our right hand in our left hand. This is compassion in the hand of wisdom, skillful means, knowing what to do. And that's the foundation of our action. And so we have these 2 minds of compassion and wisdom, and we bring those together in the Mahayana Sutric path, right? But then in the Tantric path, it's the bliss and wisdom that are coming together eventually in the one mind. So this union of bliss and emptiness is a union of the illusory, clear body. So that's like the female aspect, and the wisdom, it's the male aspect rather. Male aspect is the illusory body, and the wisdom aspect, Prajnaparamita, is the female aspect. So this is why in tantric representations you'll see male and female together. And again, using that analogy of that desire, but we've got to realize this is not ordinary. This is it's to get that taste of that bliss and wisdom minds coming together. Okay. The practitioner focuses on the penetrating brilliance, as in laser-like brilliance, of the blissful wisdom. So it cuts like a laser beam through all our false protections of this and that, me and you, etc. We say that, this and that, me and you, as being independent, out there, separate from the mind perceiving it. And piercing at the very heart of reality. So we're coming closer to emptiness. And when we think about the brilliance, when we're visualizing in Tantra, the light, I remember when we were preparing for the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat at Chenrezig Institute, and first of all, Geshe Sultram, the resident Lama there, he was guiding us, and then he went away. And so Geshe Dzogchen was right there when we were setting up and starting the retreat. And of course, Vajrasattva is white, right? So we had the whole white and light theme. We had everything white and light. And we thought we had a lot of light. And then Geshe Dzogchen came in and added quite a lot of light. And what is really, really helpful if you're doing a longer retreat, you want the light, because you're going more and more inwards. You can really implode. You've got to have this, and it's a reflection of the natural clarity of our own mind. And it's so, well, as you can see here, we've got a lot of light. We haven't got all the lights on, but we like a bit of light, right? And what does it do? It uplifts our mind. It makes our minds happy, so forth. So we use all of this in Tantra. So in the Tibetan tradition, this transformation of desirous energy is illustrated by the following analogy. Yeah. There are certain insects who are said to be born from wood. Woodworms, or what are they called? Yeah, they're white.
Yes.
Pop out of the wood. Pop out of the wood. No. Their life cycle begins with their hatching deep within the body of a tree. They grow up and feed upon the tree, eating the very wood out of it. So they're feeding on the tree from which they were born. Similarly, through the practice of tantric transformation, desire gives birth to insightful wisdom, which in turn consumes all the negativities obscuring our mind, including the desire that gave it birth. So our existence, when we look at the 12 links of existence, it's our desirous attachment, our clinging and grasping that brings us into existence. Yes, it's based on the root of our fundamental ignorance, getting everything wrong, but it's this craving and grasping mind. So here we're transforming those ordinary afflictions into the purity of desirous energy, because it's an intense energy. So that's what it means, bringing desire onto the path, into the path. So it's not an ordinary level of that. The intensity of desirous energy, a practitioner is skillful enough to direct into the spiritual path, forms the basis of the division into these 4 classes of Tantra. So I'll just go through it briefly today, because we go into it in much more detail, but we won't have time. So the 4 classes of Tantra. So this is illustrated by different images of increasing sexual intimacy, another analogy here. So action Tantra, Kriya Tantra, if you've taken like Vajrasattva, Chenrezig, Medicine Buddha, certain levels of Tara practice as an empowerment, then it's likely it will have been an action Tantra. Usually a commitment of an action Tantra is, recite that mantra, a mala of that mantra, or however many times of that mantra. That's usually the commitment that you then undertake. You don't take any tantric vows at this level. Actually, you only take those in highest yoga tantra. So this is what that is. And very much the focus is on the external activities. So, for example, when we did the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, because Vajrasattva is about purification, and I asked people to turn up, I think it was 5 days at least before the retreat started, because that actually was the start of the retreat. Because what did we start with? We started with cleaning the outside of the gompa that we were using. So the approach to the gompa, which meant, the windows, the walls, the ceiling of the roof, the awnings, the path, etc., the foyer vestibule area. So we cleaned all the externals. Then we cleaned the room inside, top to tail, cleaning the room. So first of all was cleaning. It's a purification practice, right? Cleaning, cleaning, cleaning. Just ask the Venerable, she spent the other day, Thursday, wasn't it? Clean, clean, clean the gompa, ready for the new year, because we want it nice for the new year. Okay, so we spent that time cleaning, such the point. So this was in the Tara gompa. Next door is the library. And then they saw, oh, it's all clean over there. We've got to clean over here, because now we were showing up the dirt. We didn't ask them to do that, but it was very nice that they did, So the cleaning, there's an emphasis on your own self-cleanliness, right? So for example, when we do Nyungne retreats, there's a thing about, washing our mouth and keeping, washing, not having to have a shower before every session, but keeping everything clean before the sessions. So sometimes you will know, those of you who've taken an empowerment, before you enter the door, there's a mouthwash that you have. Take some sips of the saffron water and spit it out. So that's that symbolic cleaning before you take an empowerment. So there's great emphasis on those externals. And here in this analogy of a sexual attraction, is using the bliss of looking at an attractive partner. You see somebody attractive and you just look, a little bit of a sideways look. So that's the level of Tantra. It's a little bit, there's no touching, there's no engagement, just looks pretty good to me, right? And having said that, we're going to stop right there at the looking phase. Keep you on 10 hooks for the next installment. Any questions, comments? Okay. Well, we'll dedicate to having the opportunity to investigate more. Now, I have to check here because I rarely check here on the chats. No, all good. Okay. Page 8, the first 2 verses. Yewadi no dojai lama sange drogyone drowa chikyam mahalokam de sahala go pasho janshub sensho rinpoche makye pana Puchi ke panyam pame payam goni bundu pelwashu. Page 9, the prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling joy, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. A prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and practical Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with her lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, spreading the precious and teachings through explanations and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in all. Okay, so what's your homework? Apart from, I don't want to say your homework's looking at attractive people, but why not? Perhaps if you've got a partner, maybe tell them you're doing your homework. Also do that meditation on settling the mind in its natural state. That's that natural clarity, spaciousness of the mind, that thinking that all minds are of the one state of being clear and knowing, and finding the times when you just naturally experience that and bathe in that. Space bathing. Okie dokie. I can stop the recording, and what are our announcements? Next Saturday afternoon, we're having